All right, and we're back with the program. It's Gerald Glassford from the Pop Culture Cosmos, right back at you here. Just want to let everybody know that it is that time again. We're talking all the great things that are going on, not only in 2019, but also the entire decade as well. But before we do that, we've got a great December TV update. And who else is going to give it to you out there but our good friend? She is one of the lead writers. In fact, I think she's the head honcho writer from the TVRatingsGuide.com. You got to check out what she's doing today at the TVRatingsGuide.com. Plus, also as well, Jessica's show on Anchor, and also as well Apple Podcasts and several different podcast outlets. It is my good friend. It is Miss Jessica Boggs. Jessica, happy holidays to you and the family, first and foremost.
Well, it's a happy holidays to you too. There's many people that do Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, the like, besides Christmas.
Absolutely. So many different people out there. And for whatever holiday that you're celebrating, just want to make sure it's the best for you. But it's also that time of the year we always see those Christmas specials that are like 50 years old come about. And some of them still warm my heart every time I see it. We see the same Christmas movies coming out each and every time, every year. We see, whether it's The Holiday, Scrooged, Die Hard, any of those Christmas movies that are out there. Tell you what, it's still that time of the year. There's a lot of great things. There's a lot of great things going on, but I first want to focus in on it's closing in, like I said, on the end of the year, and there's some still things going on when it comes to the networks and the decisions that they're making with some shows, plus also what shows are performing well and what are, which ones are dying, which ones are on the cancellation block, and which ones are looking towards their way to being a hit. So I want to hear your thoughts. Can you give us an update of what's going on in the world of television?
Well, recently this past week, the CW aired their crossover called Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Hold on. A crossover event of the ages, I think was what I heard the voiceover say.
Although it didn't really translate that well to the 9 o'clock hour, it did bring some noticeable ratings lift to the CW.
You said in the 8 o'clock hour, is that correct? It really helped those shows in the 8 o'clock hour.
Yes.
Like which ones per se?
Supergirl's special time slot got noticeable improvement by airing at 8 o'clock, especially with the crossover. Batwoman did get some noticeable lift. I believe that's that 0.6 was a new series high for Batwoman especially. And The Flash did go up to like a 0.6, even though it's like at normal numbers.
Fair enough. But it's nice to see that people are interested enough to go ahead and support the CW. And there is a little bit of a bump up in the 8 o'clock hour. It's kind of disappointing on the other hand, and I'm sure CW is kind of disappointed to see it on the other end at the spectrum where it's not carrying over into the 9 o'clock hour. And just to me, it's not that surprising because, what can I say? It's just the fact that, CW just doesn't seem to get as much love as, a lot of people think it does. But to have a major crossover event like this and to not have it fully supported, to me overall, has got to be a little bit disappointing.
It is somewhat disappointing. I mean, although Black Lightning only got like a 1/10 of a bump, though, which is okay nowadays for 2019 rating standards, but it's still somewhat disappointing.
Well, there's other major things to talk about besides the Infinite Crisis saga going on in CW. So I want to hear your thoughts on what else is going on, because I know you've got some updates on some other shows on the other broadcast networks you also want to talk about as well.
Well, Fox decided to air the Christmas miniseries titled The Moody's. I have no idea why Fox decided to air that, but it aired around the same numbers as Almost Family did, except Almost Family is now doing much worse.
That's a shame for Fox, even though they're still riding somewhat high on The Masked Singer. I mean, I've seen the promotion out there like crazy. I know a lot of people are following it. People are still trying to figure out who was going, what's going on, especially when you have former singers from the 90s like Seal and athletes on there and things of that nature. So it's kind of fun to see that The Masked Singer is trying to throw everyone off by going ahead and just having almost anybody seemingly available to go ahead and being under the mask. But their ratings overall, I think, comparative to what the rest of the broadcast scene, I think it's a pretty positive sign for The Masked Singer because they've done such a tremendous job of promoting the show overall.
Yeah, despite it going down along with the rest of the networks, it's still one of the top shows of 2019 overall. So that was one of the big ratings moments of 2019 was The Masked Singer.
Absolutely. It is definitely one of the big hits of 2019. How's everything going on with CBS, NBC, and ABC? Because I know there are also a lot of things going on and some changes that are coming up for those networks as well.
Well, ABC's mid-season schedule pushed Grey's Anatomy to the 9 o'clock hour to make room for Station 19. I'm not really sure that it's going to end up well for ABC in the long run, to be quite honest. And Sold, an ABC/Sony co-production, the last one to get a back order from ABC. 22 episodes to be exact, but it's not even doing as well behind the Goldbergs as it should have been.
So that's not a great sign for Schooled, and I'm sorry to hear that. How is Stumptown doing? Because I know that was something early on you and I talked about as far as the +3 and the +7s, that it was showing strong numbers for a debut for a rookie show per se. So how is Stumptown performing at this point in time?
Stumptown, still at 0.5s. It was back in November. It's still at 0.5, though, although you still got 6 more episodes out of, they still got like a back 5 for Stumptown for creative purposes. And so I'm thinking outside ratings factors is going to probably keep the show on the air. I don't see why not.
Now, there's also good stuff going down, and also some mixed things are going on with NBC and CBS. Which one would you like to head off first?
We're going with CBS. The merger with Viacom and CBS is official, as we all know. Although there's no noticeable ratings effects, we still have like SEAL Team and SWAT at normal numbers. Whereas the comedies are doing okay, while All Rise this week has cooled down noticeably in the 0.5s range. I'm guessing that's going to be a Limitless at the end of the season.
And what's the story going on with NBC? NBC has been quietly just going under the radar. I know there's a lot of preparation going on in behind the scenes for their upcoming streaming network, Peacock, which I think is probably the dumbest name of all the streaming networks. But be that as it may, I mean, it's going to have a substantial NBC library. But with the main channel right now going on, what's the focus right now for NBC?
I think the focus right now is getting mid-season in May. City Law is already on its way out. And now they're burning off Making It, which was a summer show, and that's not doing so hot in the ratings. the one with Amy Poehler and Nick Offerman. That's not doing so well. And we're getting ready to air AGT Champions. Speaking of America's Got Talent, that's going through a lot of controversy right now, especially with the firings of Julianne Hough and Gabrielle Union, but more so with Gabrielle Union. And the show is under investigation. Who knows what would come up after this? And Howard Stern basically laid into like Simon, pretty much.
Yeah, AGT is definitely going to go through some troubles, both legally and also from a PR perspective. I think that series is in doubt in at least some form or manner. I mean, it may be brought back on the air at some point later on, but after all the trouble has gone down with what Gabrielle Union has gone through, and also the firings and also the behind the scenes stuff, and of course the upcoming possible litigation that could entail from it, it looks like the future of the show as a whole could be in jeopardy. At least some sort of revision takes place, and Simon Cowell's place as the preeminent figure in all of these talent shows, because he's either has a starring role in one or he has his hand in a production point in another. His status as an individual like that, it could be also hurt pretty badly by what's going on if the accusations really come to light and are substantiated, and also as well acted upon by NBC and other networks.
Yeah, you got NBC investigating it, and you also have SAG-AFTRA investigating it. And that doesn't sound like very good news from a PR standpoint. That's what happened with Bull, but that was a different case. But Bull is still on the air.
And AGT, the ratings might be good enough to keep it on the air long term, but we'll have to wait and see how much of a black cloud this puts over America's Got Talent. Bluff City Law, like you said, is shutting down after 10 episodes. So goodbye, Bluff City Law. Unfortunately, that's all she wrote for that series. I do want to ask, before we head over to your picks for best of the year and best of the decade in shows, what's going on as far as any other shows on the cut line, or what's going on in the world of cable? Anything else you've got for us for December TV update?
Well, you got a lot of shows that are coming in on HBO. There was a show on HBO. I forgot, it was a tip of my tongue, and apparently it's on the levels of Succession as far as prestige, but I forgot the name. Watchmen bumped around between 600 and 800,000 viewers for the first airings in the fine for HBO territory. Succession, and Variety posted an article like HBO's Watchmen is a word of mouth hit, although it's doing around the same as Succession.
Okay, well, so we're going to have a discussion, I'm sure, about Succession and the Watchmen coming up in our best of the year so far in television. So we'll leave that to the side, but it's interesting to see what the relationship is as far as ratings are concerned for Succession and also Watchmen, because I think Watchmen, I don't know, on the surface, it looks like it's a lot more expensive show than Succession. I could be wrong on that detail because I haven't really looked into the production budgets, but on the surface, it looks like there's more given to Watchmen. I've seen both. I have opinions on both, but like I said, I'll save that for later. But any last thoughts on the December TV update before we head on to your best of lists?
Well, SmackDown has cooled down for the most part, but it's still leading in the Friday night ratings, especially for Fox, though. Whereas you see AEW was cooling down quite a bit in the last cable update, and NXT has been pretty much stable.
NXT actually has beaten, NXT has actually beaten All Elite Wrestling for the past 2 weeks, best of my knowledge, on overall ratings. In the demo AEW, the beloved 1849 to 18 to 49 demo, All Elite Wrestling still leads, but over 50 viewers, aka me, still gravitate towards NXT from what I'm able to ascertain.
Yeah, that's what I've seen too, though. I was just going with the 1849 type thing. Although AEW has crossed over into like AEW Dark, and you've seen that on YouTube streams.
Correct. That's something that they show 3 to 4 matches that are taped after the live showing, the live airing of AEW Dynamite. So and that gets them an additional 100,000 views per se. I've seen one of their channels online. So I mean that's additional. I still think we should, with the AEW Dark, they should go ahead and syndicate that show out. I think that would still be better. A traditional older model of syndication, I think they should go ahead and do. But again, that's just me thinking right there out loud, because YouTube is great for a lot of things, but this is just another wrestling show on the air, and so many other outlets still try to go ahead and stream on YouTube. And you can see it gets, like I said, 100,000 views, a couple 100,000 views maybe, but still, I think it would be best served by getting a lot more eyeballs in a syndicated format. But that's another discussion for another day when it comes to wrestling. It's just nice to see that there is alternatives outside the World Wrestling Entertainment for pro wrestling fans or anybody interested in sports entertainment.
I guess we're moving on to the year now.
Exactly. Once again, I'm on with my good friend Jessica Boggs. You got to check out what she's doing today at the TVRatingsGuide.com. Also, as well, if you got some earphones and you're listening to our show, check her awesome show out, Jessica's show, on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and several different podcast outlets. It covers the world of entertainment, always gets you the latest TV updates, and a whole lot more. Once again, that's Jessica's show, now available on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and so many other different podcast outlets. That's almost like a promo right there for you. But anyways,
Yeah.
We now head on to the best of 2019. So we're going to talk about the best shows of 2019. I've got a few in mind, but I know you have a few in mind as well. So ladies first, because I am a true gentleman. Ladies first, what are your thoughts on the best television shows of 2019?
Well, in no particular order, I named the other two, Secession, The Good Fight, Watchmen, and Rick and Morty, as a few of the highlights from 2019 on my list. Secession, somebody in a review called it everyone's JR. Kind of like Dallas, but everyone is J.R. Ewing.
I'll say this with Secession. I've tried to get into it. I just, to me, it's just kind of, I don't know, it's very difficult to explain because, and it's not the fact that they use F-bombs every single word, every other word. I mean, that's something that is on HBO. Of course, you're going to have something that is TV mature. They always like to push an envelope and all that nature. But for me, when I look at it, it just seems to me that, you know, with Brian Cox there, he is just commandeering the show. I mean, he's done such a great job on the show, but everybody else, to me, it's just a mixed bag. And just to me, it just becomes that they're all whiny kids, which I understand and get the point of what that is. But to me, it's just not as entertaining, and it didn't bite me enough as I wanted it to, as far as hook me in and get me hooked for several more episodes. I watched a couple, but it's just so hard for me to get into and stay with it because it just seems like it's just 1 hour of whining each and every time. So I'm kind of saying no on it being the best of, but I can understand why a lot of people like the show. I can understand that why it's getting a lot of acclaim. I can understand why Brian Cox is getting a lot of love, but some of the other characters as well, it's great, but it's just to see the continual, just like, I don't know, to me, it's very dysfunctional, and I don't think it's always in the best of ways, but why does it connect with you so much?
I'm thinking is we had that discussion over Secession being like one of the next cult hits, like big hits, though, especially in delayed viewing, because that was one of the highlights, especially when we were talking about Secession starting like in the summer, like all the way to like now, pretty much.
Well, to me, it's like an angry version of Arrested Development. It's just that everybody's just all angry, and it just, yeah, I don't know. It's just not connecting with me enough. I mean, that maybe that's just me, but you got a great list going so far. So outside of Secession, I disagree with. I know you said Watchmen. I can understand Watchmen because that's high on my list as well. But anything you also want to talk about when it comes to your best of 2019.
Well, moving on to The Good Fight, it seems like The Good Fight from CBS All Access is getting pretty good, like in acclaim, though. Even though I personally do not like the huge political aspect in it, I just pretty much overlook it, though, especially with that. And Christine Baranski's performance is almost something to die for, that I've probably have not seen in actor outside of Rachel Bloom in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Fair enough. That's a great list you got there. I can share you my list of 2019. And no, unfortunately, my best of list will not have SEAL Team on it, as you and I always joke about before in past years. The best TV I have right now with me is going to be, and in no particular. Well, actually, I'm going to say in a particular order. Let's start off with The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Cobra Kai. Pardon?
Good show.
It is a very good show. Tony Shalhoub, especially for me, stands out. He's always been one of my favorite actors, and I think all the performances on there are just tremendous. But he just does a great job on every show that he's on virtually. So, but all the ladies on there and all the characters on there are just truly just a great pleasure to watch. Cobra Kai. For me, Cobra Kai isn't as great as it was last year, because Cobra Kai was one of the 3 best shows on television last year. It still is a great show. I mean, the first part of this season was outstanding. It was just at the end, especially with the world's longest high school fight, I just think that was probably a little bit too much for me. But other than that, it still is on my list as far as overall with a great show. And I think it still had a very, very, very good second season. Doom Patrol. I think you need to go out of your way to find Doom Patrol. It's so weird. It's so out there, but I'll tell you what, it is worth watching. Elementary in its final season, I think, closed out well. I think it showed off exactly the talent still that they had of what's left for Johnny Lee Miller and also Lucy Liu. And they ended it on a point where they could still go ahead and revise it in a movie format, maybe on CBS All Access if they decide to go that route. I mean, Lucy Liu's working for CBS All Access anyways, so you never know what can happen for fans of Elementary. Stranger Things is a great show. This is probably their best. This is probably their best season ever. I think it was just an outstanding performance and by everyone involved, and I just think it's a great show that even got better, with this season. Although it's going to be hard to beat this season when it comes to the next season 4, season 5, and going on. It's going to be hard to beat what I think is going to be the plateau for this show, and that is this season. Chernobyl Chernobyl, you have to go ahead and see as far as and understand. If you get by the fact that none of the Russians are speaking Russian and that they're actually British, if you get by that fact, then you're going to be go ahead and see some outstanding acting. And I'll just tell you what, it's truly compelling television and a lot of and very interesting and to understand what went on, because as far as the 80s are concerned, it's one of the major disasters of the 80s, and you get to find out and understand a little bit more about what happened and why. And then last but not least, the best show on television for me last year. Well, let's go with you first. The best show on television last year for you, the best show on television for 2019 was?
I feel like there was no close. Everything was like there was no clear number one.
Oh, I disagree with you on that one. 110%. Because the best show on television by far was The Boys on Amazon. The Boys, mature rating, so it's not for the kids, but I think it took the superhero genre in a completely different direction. And I'll tell you what, it had the best performance on television in Homelander, the character who plays the gentleman who plays Homelander. I'll tell you what, he did an outstanding job. Get his name right now. It just was a truly incredible performance. Anthony Starr as Homelander, just a truly incredible performance. And I want to tell you, one of the great robberies of this decade was The Boys not being nominated for anything at the Golden Globes. I think that's a mistake it's an egregious mistake that I think the Golden Globes should be ashamed of, because it was the best show on television for 2019.
It's kind of not having Fargo or Atlanta in the Golden Globes, but we all know why Atlanta didn't get nominated, because we didn't have a new season of Atlanta. It's every 2 years.
Well, I know there was a lot of people out there crying for other shows that didn't get nominated, but for anyone who sees The Boys and doesn't say that's good television, I don't know what you're talking about, because I don't think you really know what good television is then, if that's the case, because The Boys to me was very compelling and something I really didn't think I would get into, and ended up wanting season 2 to play off. I very rarely have that feeling where I got to see season 2 right away. I want season 2 right away as soon as I finish season 1. And it just, you don't have that feel. I don't have that feeling very much. And that's why I enjoyed it so much. So, yep. The Boys for me. So that's our list right there for the year of 2019. Any worst picks? I know we usually target some worst picks and some dogs. What shows really just got you mad in 2019?
Definitely Almost Family from Fox. That was a travesty, both in the ratings and in the trailer. So melodramatic. It's not even funny. And pretty much I concur with many of the viewers of Game of Thrones. It's the rest of season 8. And even the final episode of season 8 of Game of Thrones.
Well, Game of Thrones to me was disappointing as well. And Josh, I know when I spoke to him, we were both disappointed with it. I don't know how it won all those Emmys. I think that's a joke, personally, because Game of Thrones is such a great show in season 6 and season 7, and to garner the acclaim that it did when everybody out there, and I mean everybody, was giving it mixed reviews, is saying something. So there must have been some cashola that HBO sent over to the people running the Emmys, and got some payouts or blackmail or something like that, because it didn't deserve it this year, and not the way to close out a series. But need I digress? For me, I won't go ahead as far as the worst of 2019. I won't go ahead and say SEAL Team, but it's still a pretty bad show. I will probably have to say Magnum PI, because it's down there. Yeah, it's down there. some pretty bad shows. I mean, there's some awful television every single year. You could pick out any network and you could find some shows there that all are really bad on each network. So need I digress on that. So I won't.
Somebody put Marvel's The Punisher as one of the worst things, despite the fact that the audience and critics were mixed reviews.
That was a 2019 show on Netflix, or was that 2018?
That was 2019, apparently, so far.
Oh, okay, because I wasn't sure when John Bernthal made the series, but not surprised. Not surprised. I mean, the Netflix shows on the Marvel shows on Netflix really didn't pan out as well as they once did. You know, that they thought they would, as they thought they would. Obviously, getting the great start from Daredevil, and it just kind of went downhill from there. But you know, they're now all in the big family of Disney Plus, and we'll see what happens down the road for Marvel and its television shows. Now that it's folded up its television studio, so to speak, and now just folded it into Marvel going forward with Disney Plus and all that. Once again, it's my good friend Jessica Boggs from the TVRatingsGuide.com. You got to check out what she's doing today at the TVRatingsGuide.com, and also as well her great show, Jessica Show, which you can catch on Apple Podcasts, Anchor, and so many other different outlets. So we've had a great.
When the hiatus is over.
Pardon me?
When the hiatus is over.
When the hiatus is over, the holidays and all that. I will. So we've gone over a December TV update. We've gone over the best of 2019 and a little bit of the worst of 2019. So I want to hear from you, my friend. We're counting down a lot of the great things that went on in pop culture this decade with a lot of our good friends of the show. You're no exception as a great friend of the show. So I want to hear your thoughts on the best TV shows from you this decade.
Oh, Atlanta, Pose, Fargo, Mr. Robot all comprise 6 through 10 in the best of 2019. No, not 2019, but the decade. All are solid shows. And then counting down the Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Superstore, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And then you have The Good Place, The Americans, probably tied, either tied or close to number one. Even though The Americans ended in the 20-teens decade.
And your number one show for the entire decade?
Eight, nine. I did say it's like a tie between The Place and
But you can't. It's like a tie for you. You just can't break that tie.
Yeah, it's really hard. So really, it was like 9, and plus there's an honorable mention.
Fair enough. That's a great list right there for you. I can give you my 5 as far as for best of the decade. Let's go with at number 5, Almost Human, which was a show that only got a limited run on Fox. I know that's out there, but I truly enjoyed the show.
One season.
Huh?
Only season.
An abbreviated season. Unfortunately, it was like up in the air and hiatus for a long time. It didn't get, unfortunately, renewed. It was on the fence, but people just absolutely loved it. I absolutely love that show. I thought it was a great concept, and it's just a shame to see that it never got its love. And it came in a period just before streaming came to life, as far as an entity, as far as being, them streaming entities buying other shows off of broadcast and cable television. This would have been a show, had it come 3 years later, I think that would have been bought out by a Netflix or bought out by another streaming entity and been able to go ahead and flourish somewhere else, like we're seeing with The Expanse right now on Amazon and many other shows that have seen a new life on a different format. So Unfortunately, Almost Human will never get a chance to go ahead and see what could materialize, but there were so many possibilities, and that's why I thought that it should be at number 5. Number 4, I'm going to say Atlanta. Atlanta is something that I think as a not only just a well-made show, I just think as a show that also defines the growing diversity that's out there and the things that you can do, and so many things that can happen when you give everyone a chance to go ahead and put out a good product. These are the type of things that come out of it, and Atlanta is just a great show, and Donald Glover is probably one of the most exceptional talents out there in Hollywood today, and you got a chance to see it with Atlanta. Number 3, Stranger Things. It's helped Netflix reach new highs, and I just think it's been one of the great shows of this decade. I also wanted to give an honorable mention as far as Netflix shows to Black Mirror. So Black Mirror as well was just off my list, but I think Black Mirror, depending on the show, depending on the season, has some really good things to see, and I recommend it highly. Number 2, The Boys. The Boys, I cannot say enough about it. I said it before earlier in this episode. I'll say it again. Right now, it's the best show on television, and you should be watching it if you are old enough to do so and don't mind the mature content. And number 1, you mentioned this show already. I think it was one of the finest works in television in the century, and that is The Americans. And I think The Americans, just for anybody who didn't catch it, should just sit down from season 1 and just watch it. Just watch it from one season to another, all the way to the end, because it is must see watching. To see quality television at its finest, I don't think you get much better than The Americans. So what do you think?
Well, yeah, there was a lot of like crossover in between the list with the decade, and of course I had like more things though, because there was no clear thing of like in the best of the decade, because there was a lot of good TV. For example, you got like Billy Porter's performance in Pose. That was pretty memorable in 2019, although it's not even in my list for the best of 2019. But that's up there in a decade.
I'm just glad you didn't put Nashville on your list.
Well, yeah. Well, Nashville did have some really good seasons, especially on the ABC front, though, but it became in the CMT thing, though, and a lot of people have complained about the CMT version, which kind of like overshadowed the ABC version quite a bit.
Fair enough, my friend. But those are some still great thoughts on not only the best of 2019, but also the best of the decade as well in television. Once again, it's my good friend Jessica Boggs from the TVRatingsGuide.com. Before we head on out, my friend, I always going to ask, what's going on in your world when it comes to Jessica's show, and also what you're doing at the TVRatingsGuide.com.
Well, Jessica's show is not only covers like entertainment and all that other stuff, it covers like a broad range of topics besides television. I know I'm working on one episode that deals with pretty heavy stuff, though, when it comes to what I've written and like in my personal blog, although it's not necessarily like entertainment, though it's pretty much relevant nowadays. It's relevant like right now when you see a lot of headlines dealing with there's so much stuff like that we need to leave in 2019 as we go into 2020, whereas like we leave bad situations in 2019 and then going into 2020 with a different mindset. It's kind of like, let's leave work it in this decade and head on to the next decade. As far as TV ratings guide, I still have the original shows that I write, plus I do have renew cancel columns in there. I have yet to like review the fate of the Moody's, even though the Moody's is a mini series. That's probably not going to go in the renew cancel column, but it's not long for this world either way, whether you like it or not.
All right, that's a great update from our own good friend Jessica Boggs from the TVRatingsGuide.com, and you also got to check out her great show today, Jessica's show. Check out all the back episodes today at Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and all your favorite podcast outlets. My friend, it's been great talking television, not only for 2019 and also the rest of the decade. I wish you all the best this holiday season and also for the rest of the decade coming up very soon, for next decade, I should say. I wish you all the best. Keep us up to date on what's going on. I know I'll be asking for a January TV update, but any last thoughts on the way out?
Let's just hope 2020 starts on a good ratings note.
Fair enough. I remember 2020 so much as far as Hugh Downs, 2020. And also Barbara Walters. Yeah, man, yeah. That's going a little bit way back, I know. That's going too many decades in the past. All right, my friend, it's always great talking to you. Can't wait for your January TV update. I want to start hearing more about what shows are on the cut line, what shows are saying goodbye, and what shows are saying hello because of those mid-season updates that are coming for all the broadcast networks and cable networks out there. So it'll be interesting to see what you have coming up for us in our January TV update right here on the Pop Culture Cosmos.